If we are individuals who are destined in our nature to destroy common sense just to prove that we are in control, what is stopping us from relapsing to prove our point? I received an incredible email about 2 weeks ago with one of my viewers, and we had a very amazing discussion about the condition of humans and how humans have this irrationality within them to feel like they are constantly in control of their lives. You know, as a human being, you want peace and you want order and you want to control things that are going on within you, but because of this irrationality that exists inside of you, you will basically sabotage your own rationality. You will sabotage peace to prove to yourself that you are still in control. And I know that sounds confusing, but it's very interesting. We're going to dive into what my viewer was talking about, a little bit about their story. We're going to talk about their philosophical stance and where they're at. So they wrote, just some relevant background before I go into the question. I am 17 years old and currently study medicine and law, third year medicine in Russia and second year law at an Australian distance learning university. I have gone into university quite early because there were some financial issues at my high school that kind of forced me to work hard to finish school a few years early and secure a university spot. That was cheaper for my family than finishing high school at a normal age. I've been stuck with the habit of PMO ever since my early teen years, and I've always been a generally average person all of my life as a result of that. Yes, it seems that I'm quite the prodigy at the moment in terms of academics, but in both fields, medicine and law, I am generally just an average student in these schools. I honestly believe I can do so much, but sometimes I feel rushed and pressured in this highly competitive environment to do so much that I can handle. This forces me to procrastinate and eventually just grind and cram to end up with a seemingly average borderline passing grades. I think if I truly mastered NoFap, all of these problems would just go away and I would be a pretty good student and take advantage of this great foundation that I have built myself thus far. But the obstacle I am facing is my motivation. I think PMO has contributed to my lack of motivation to abstain and questioned my capacity to complete the gruesome task of completing these 2 degrees. This is what brings me to my question. I was recently assigned a project by my Russian teacher to research a particularly interesting Russian writer and comment on his works. As I am a fan of Jordan B. Peterson's lectures, this has led me to Dostoevsky. The book, Notes from Underground, raises a lot of questions relating to man's relationship with rationality. I will now proceed to the question that I plan to ask, which will really help in me building my foundation for my long-term mastery of NoFap and beyond. The Russian author and I have been really interested in Fyodor Dostoevsky, as highlighted in his book, Notes from the Underground, the strange quality of humans to be irrational and take control over things. This phrase, man is not a piano key, is a testament to that fact. He has stated that if a society is aiming to achieve utopia, or a sense to eliminate all suffering and become fully rational individuals, existing as piano keys to rules of nature, the irrational character in humans will just desire to tear it apart and destroy rationality to prove that man is in control. So in relation to NoFap, how do we avoid becoming irrational and taking control over things such as our want of PMO? If we are individuals who are destined in our nature to destroy common sense just to prove that we are in control, what is stopping us from relapsing to prove our point? Dostoevsky emphasizes the need for humans to think that we are in control. I just want your take on this man when it relates to relapsing and the mechanisms for justification that our brain undergoes when we have urges. Is there a chance that humans can completely obliterate this need to control and thus act as a piano key along the rules of nature? Is our need to take control over things and take responsibility over things and our problems the main obstacle that stops us? How do we make this change and completely free from PMO and other destructive temptations? Dostoevsky thinks that if humans are given all they wanted and live in a state of utopia, that they will eventually find other ways to suffer and destroy the establishment of rationality, because it all seems so boring to be piano keys in a predictable world of common sense. And it's just fun to destroy stuff and see what happens. This is probably the best question I've ever heard, at least from my audience. I'm going to make a video about this, which I am. And here are some of my ideas. First, man desires to take control seems relatively true, but I think we can solve the problem of irrationality and the cycle of destroying to reclaim power with these three things: values, history, and truth. The first solution is a societal solution, but it starts with the individual. Although we have an illogical desire to remind ourselves that we are in control, our biology won't allow us to take it to the point where we ruin our genetic goals. For example, suicide or killing your family to prove you're in control. We would never do such a thing. Excluding mentally ill people as they don't make up the aggregate, the strongest values in society are those that fortify our survival. For example, humans collectively value their families. We have to, or we won't exist. And because of that value, our parents will hustle to feed us and raise us, and we will do the same. This has been going on for God knows how long. So we simply have to understand how NoFap plays into our genetic goals and use the last 2 points that I'm about to explain to hit it home. The second point, history, gives us context to the now. It allows us to study our past to determine the future. For example, look at the history of Japan throughout the last 50 years. They've got a very intense pornified culture at the moment. The government has to place ads in the city to encourage people to have children, to encourage people to sleep together. Now, there are other factors like work schedule, city infrastructure, male and female archetypes and role models, etc. But we both know that porn is playing a role into that decline in the population. With the current projections, Japan is going to get to the point where there will be as many old people as there are kids, which is fucking scary. And lastly, the truth will always set you free. So long as we know the truth about porn and its damages on our psyches and society, we won't allow ourselves to consume it. As I've said before, we can be aware of something that can destroy us, but we won't act on it to prove to ourselves that we're in control. Once the West collectively understands the destructive nature of a pornified culture, things will change, especially with the previous points in mind. So that is my rant on the take. And he replied back saying, I'm really liking the ideas that you're sharing about countering irrationality. From a secular point of view, your points make absolute sense, and it will make a really informative video to your very diverse audience who may have varying opinions on religion. I have started to read more about Dostoevsky, and I have discovered that he is a religious person. To solve the problem of irrationality in the individual, he looked to God as a power above himself to follow and become rational by following his rules. Jordan B. Peterson has made a lot of comments about Dostoevsky's work and stated that he was one of the pioneers who advocated against utopianism. He noticed a change in our culture that deviated from one that centered around a moral purpose governed by religion to a culture solely centered around relieving suffering, which turned into communism later in Russia, which resulted in the closing of churches and death and destruction. Since I am a Christian, I have from time to time always come back to the Bible to seek wisdom for my moral purpose. From Dostoevsky's assertions and Jordan P. Peterson's analysis, it seems that the Bible is the only way to counter irrationality in an individual, in the way that instills a moral purpose that provides endless motivation. I don't know if you're religious or not, but would you consider that this is the ultimate answer to the question? Sure, your secular stances on this problem are helpful in guiding a person with no moral purpose closer to it, but wouldn't it be more helpful to place God in the picture, which will allow them to access endless salvation? When I say God, I do not necessarily only mean the God in Christianity or Islam. I'm speaking of a higher power that can become a catalyst for true spiritual transformation. Russell Brand has even highlighted it in a podcast with Jordan B. Peterson, that the main step people have to overcome to be truly free from their addiction is a full and true spiritual transformation. This is supported by the relevant addiction literature and really boils down to a radical change of perspective. For me, God is the main catalyst for this change in perspective. I think for others, they might find comfort in finding a higher power that fits for them in order to change their perspective, because without it, it is very hard to overcome addiction. All the fear in the world of losing your family or killing yourself wouldn't stop an irrational person from continuing to be irrational in his life choices, unless there is a change in perspective that puts you in the picture of God as a person of higher value than other animal or insect or creature in this world, with a moral purpose that pushes you to do great things. Thanks again for getting back to me. I almost thought you didn't see my email. I will hopefully see this turn into a video on your channel very soon. And that was basically the end of our cute little discussion here. It was really informative, and even for myself, an excellent reminder as to the reality of overcoming an addiction coming down to purpose. But I absolutely agree with this guy, how he mentioned some form of higher power. You don't need to be religious. God is not bound by religion to believe in some form of higher power, higher energy, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the universe. It's something that is metaphysical and cannot be seen or heard. It's just a feeling. And it played a huge role in myself to overcoming my porn addiction and the compulsive masturbation, as I was living a purposeless life. I literally felt dead, and I was entering a realm of nihilism where I believed everything had no purpose to it. Everything was coincidental. Nothing really mattered. We all die in the end. So what I do here doesn't matter. If I choose to be the best person possible, it doesn't even matter. Why help other people if, everything doesn't have a meaning to it? So it made me, it multiplied the odds of staying in a crappy habit. It made it a lot harder to break free because there was an incentive. But when I woke up and started realizing the significance of my life, when I started looking up to the sky and saying, yes, there is some design to this world, there is a creator, my life has purpose, everything started changing. So this was a super productive conversation that I felt obligated to present to you guys. And if you've watched thus far, you understand the value of this discussion, how important it is, how important this is to overcoming your addiction. And this is very introspective, this conversation, diving really deep within yourself. I believe my stance on it is an excellent start to a very, very wide audience who is turned off by the idea of a higher power, who's turned off by religion, who's turned off by the idea of God. I think my stance is very powerful and can do a lot for you if you don't want to step in, if you're afraid to step into the your spiritual ascendance, if you will. But it's really only a stepping stone, and it's really potent if you use what I said, and with this other guy, with the other gentleman, with what he said, use them in conjunction together, and you're setting yourself up for the victor's path. You're literally on the golden road. So that is enough ranting. This was a cute little podcast style video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to smash up the likes, make sure you're subscribed, and consider hitting the notification bell if you want to be notified on all of my future content. That being said, there may be some of you who are suffering with this addiction. You're like, dang, I don't know who I am. I don't have my higher power. I'm not on the path. I'm not on the golden road. I'm just relapsing. I'm going in binging loops. And you need to get some help, brother. So what I've done is I made a free video training series down in the description that does exactly this. It helps you through the purpose of finding your values, looking in within yourself, doing some proper introspection, diagnosing where you're currently at, so you can then begin the process of becoming a stronger, a developed human being, rising into the masculine and taking control of your life. So if you need some help nipping this addiction in the butt, saying goodbye to porn, check out the description. I've got some training for you. It's completely free. I will not charge you a penny for it. Cheers.
Pull up in a wave, breaking chains, we insane, yo. I just lost my name from the pain in my brain, yo. I can't feel my bass, I can't feel my face. Changing up my ways, now it's time to switch a lane, yo. Long nose like banana. call you Peter Pan, cause you drooling like Cupid. You won't understand what it took to get the food dish. Stacking all my bands in my hands, I'm Jewish.
Man, I dip my fucking hands in a fountain. So much fucking water dripping down from the mountain. My